Well then everyone, we have got a interesting story today because, number one, the UK acquisition market is really popping off. I mean, Codemasters was purchased by EA for over $1 billion, and now Tencent have purchased Sumo Group for $1.3 billion. And, you know, it's an interesting story in and of itself, but it's also a handy opportunity for us to basically give you guys the TLDR of what Tencent are actually doing and how we think Sumo could actually fit into that. So the acquisition is for $1.27 billion, and it's a nice little increase in their share price. So I imagine a bunch of people are going to be pretty happy in terms of the old finances there. Now, Tencent were already an investor in this company, though I think being acquired is obviously very different. And when you look into the repertoire of this company, I think it starts to make a lot more sense. Because you might think of Sumo Digital and think, wait, what? Who? Well, it's the likes of Sonic All-Star Racers, which was OK+. Crackdown 3, which, I mean, people remember Terry Crews was involved in the marketing material and that the game was basically a big old dud. Sumo are an odd bunch where basically their game releases, like, some have been good, a lot have been mixed, generally not super notable, I would say, though there are some neat things in their library. But they are a bit more known for like work for hire, support work, things like that. And that's why I think I bring this up, because I'm fairly sure that this is Tencent trying to just bolster their general capabilities. Sumo have got quite a lot of experience in porting and just a lot of that sort of general work that supports a product made by, by a primary development studio. So it seems like that's what they're doing. Now, there are some statements we could go through here, but it's pretty simple. It's basically the studio saying they're very happy and Tencent saying they're very happy, which, is not really a surprise. That is pretty much precisely what they would say in a situation like this. But yes, I've seen people joke about, the octopus going across the world, acquiring everything, and that absolutely is happening. I mean, we have Tencent acquisition stories so regular. I mean, I'm fairly sure... I think it was Daniel Ahmad was tweeting about this. Actually, I'll see if I can bring them up, but just their rate of acquisitions really increasing hard.
Yeah, I know it's definitely seems to have accelerated recently. And I wonder if that's them starting this process a year or two ago, whenever we saw the first major ones. And now it's deals are coming to a close around the place, or maybe they're even freeing up capital in certain places to actually allocate it here, or something like that. But it's a very, how do I put this? It's a very broad strokes approach, where they clearly are happy to just buy anyone who seems to be in the business for a while and know what they're doing. I guess it's the case of Sumo, you're not going to make a massive amount of money. If you buy Sumo, they're not going to be printing money for you. No chance. At least as far as I understand, the performance of their games. They seem to be just very standard, happy to do what they do. Their games don't blow anyone away, but there's decent, happy customers for all of them. And they work with basically everyone major in the UK, which, maybe isn't super huge at the minute, in terms of what's been output recently. But there are there's the Turn 10, or no, Playground,
Yeah.
Are the Forza ones. There's just so many studios in there that are kind of sitting in the background, owned by Microsoft or by Sony, and just working on stuff, that it's it feels like a way to have tendrils in loads of different places.
Yeah, and there really is loads because, well, Sumo, 14 studios in 5 countries. They are UK-based, but in 5 countries, and 1,200 staff. So an acquisition like this does just mean a lot of staff. And when we go into, this is what I really wanted to bring up, the increase in the rate of acquisitions being done. And Daniel Ahmad, I think, is a very credible source, especially he does a lot of analysis work on the Chinese market and things like that. So, yeah, Tencent has doubled. It has doubled the amount of, in half one of 2021, it has doubled the acquisitions that it did in 2020, and it has 6x'd its 2019 total. Funny enough, 2019 is when they took an 8.75% stake in Sumo Digital. I imagine it's the sort of thing where they do their investment and then they just sort of, through the position of owning near enough 10% of a company, learn a little bit more about it, see how it goes, and if it really makes sense, go do that big acquisition.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. You put your toes in, go, this water's quite nice. We'll have the entire pool to ourselves, thank you. So it's interesting because it seems like we haven't seen any big negatives to Tencent's massive investment yet. It seems to be just them going, okay, we will buy everything, siphon the profits, as any investor would. It's just we are actually interested in the games market. So I think the interesting thing will be, because I'm thinking about Sumo, like what's the actual motive for purchasing Sumo outside of, like actual money stuff. But it's like Sumo's output, I feel, could probably fit a very nice niche in the Chinese market if they start to, if they use the, like Sumo now has, contacts in China. Can they get stuff published there when the consoles hit like wider markets and launch really, really hard? So it'll be interesting to see that.
Almost certainly. For a few other notes from Daniel, Tencent are going to be backing the work for hire projects that Sumo do. So, Sumo, they work for your Sonys, your Microsofts, your Segas, etc. They're also, Sumo themselves are going to be looking for acquisitions. So, of course, if Sumo acquires something, that's also all part of Tencent, really. That's essentially what's going on. We are seeing Tencent really just big up their capabilities. And what's interesting, I think, for me here is like that work for hire stuff. Now it's no longer doing work for hire with, just this UK company, Sumo. It's now work for hire with Tencent. So I feel like strategically this is quite a strong acquisition because Sumo's tendrils are spread quite a bit more than I think their name recognition is. So it's an interesting acquisition, and it just goes into what we're seeing with Tencent. I mean, 62 gaming-related companies have either been acquired or invested in the first half of this year. That is pretty big. Of course, we've talked about before in previous episodes, all of that stuff going on with fear of regulation in their home market, trying to diversify, hit more of the Western market. So it basically all makes sense for what we think Tencent's strategy is. Yes, they have a bunch of uncomfortable ties and things like that. The other side of them likely also does just want to act like a big corporation and make a lot of money.
Yeah, I think we'll be in for a very, very strange future if something goes down in China. I mean, likely not, because like all the monetary stuff around games is, I feel a little bit too strong for the government to come in and go, games are bad now, we've decreed it. But it's like, if ever something goes drastically wrong, now Tencent as a company, I mean, I guess I'm not completely sure of how they would physically go about this, but they own so much now outside of China that they could probably leap out of China, at least a certain portion of them, and not be too bad, at least as far as games are concerned. That's a kind of weird thought. Obviously, they're significantly more than their games business, but you could almost see the games business splitting off and leaving China, in a sense, because they own so much more. But there's one thing that I really think we should do at some point, and that is some sort of research on an article or something we can do for a little one-off episode or something on just how long it'll be at current rate before there are no independent studios left in the world. Because between Embracer and Tencent, because I don't know how hard Tencent's been going overall in Europe versus the US. Nothing kind of comes to my mind in terms of like thoughts there. But at this point, there'll be no one left in Europe who isn't owned by either Embracer or Tencent.
Yeah, and it's worth just going, this report from Nico Partners is very useful. Basically, of China's domestic games market, Tencent are 43%. Overseas was 21% of its total games revenue. So that's something they're going to be looking to increase. And if you look at the games they've published, it's like League of Legends, of course, that's Dungeon Fighter, which most of our people won't know about, and of course Crossfire, which, funny enough, is getting its big Western release with a campaign that is made by Remedy, of all people, the Control developers. They've got licenses to Call of Duty, PUBG, WeChat. They do WeChat. If anyone knows about how a lot of communication and payments is done in China, you'll know the WeChat's absolutely massive. And basically the main factors, according to Nico Partners, in this rise are that Alibaba, and so Alibaba, that's AliExpress, Alipay, things like that. Jack Ma's company, though, Jack Ma has found himself in a little bit of hot water lately. ByteDance, people will most likely know ByteDance as the TikTok parent company, so they are challenging Tencent. Also, they plan to hit games by smaller game. Then also it's a realization that there's a lot of hit games by smaller developers the likes of, say, Genshin Impact, they bring up here, and that also, as they say, the global market beckons beyond China's borders, which we have talked about at length. So it's a nice little overview of Tencent. I think it's just something we should be aware of, because just that era of things being a bit more simple with the publishers that we all know about, that era is ending, or at least things are changing a little bit, and it's just worth everyone knowing what's going on.
That's interesting. The idea there that this is to counter Chinese opposition is very fun to me, because Tencent's basically the only big Chinese firm that has really strong ties outside. So could it be a case where they're looking at the home market and going, not even just from like the government side or the regulatory side, and going, shit, we've got real competition in our home market.
Yeah.
If ever, if someone drops, out of the blue, like with Genshin, if there's anything that drops that does capture a massive part of the market and, like drastically lowers how much revenue we're getting from our, Arena of Valor or Honor of Kings or League of Legends and stuff in the home market, how are we going to counter that? Because it seems to be very much, I don't want to say random, but you know what I mean, the kind of the explosiveness of, here's a game, suddenly it's king of the world.
Yeah, well, like if they have a 43% domestic market share in 2020, let's just say that goes down to go down by 20% or 10%.
Yeah.
Right? Because say MiHoYo, me in words, because they're popping off like mad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if they lose 10% market share, that's like a quarter. I mean, I know that's also total bullshit waffle numbers, but you get my point, right? Any hits to their domestic market share will disproportionately hit their bottom line, because overseas is only 21% of their overall revenue. So they really will want to pump up overseas, because that makes them more safe as a business. Hence, investing in a lot of things like Lightspeed, like David Kim's new studio, a lot of the things that we've seen. And then the likes of Sumo Digital, who likely, in addition to doing their usual things, are pretty useful to have around, given what their expertise seems to have been.
I imagine if you want someone to be very, very strong for incubation, if you are trying to mirror Eastern success over in the West in some capacity, because I mean, it's a case of like, if they're afraid of, I mean, I know I've kind of got this entire vision of Tencent in my head and what they're afraid of, that may not translate to reality, but the idea of like the very volatile market being offset by big explosive games over in the East, if the same happens in the West, now Tencent already have half the West. So they own so many places and have like we say, have their tendrils in so many places that whenever one of those crops up, they're in the position to go, oh, yoink, we'll have that.
Yeah.
We'll have that immediately. And not to say like they'll steal it, like, but the idea of just, oh, we'll be able to profit from whatever explosion comes out of all of these small little companies.
Yeah, so like they're a large conglomerate. M&A is going to be a clear part of their business model. Why not capture that shit? That seems to be what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of how to think about what Tencent is really doing in the market. Hope you found it interesting. And I guess that's it for us. See you later.